Moderation makes everyone feel safe. Yeah. That's part of my problem. I'm not interested in that anymore. Just silly. Planet's gone absolutely silly. I got nothing nothing to do with this. It's gone stupid. Anyways, welcome, Pawnee Rocks Truck Shop. I'm Dr. Rocks, and this is the supercharged Pathfinder pickup project. And I'll be right back. Got a barking dog. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. Yeah, been watching a lot of self-help videos lately, just empowerment videos and stoicism and just being a smarter, wiser man. And yeah, sometimes you wish you were still in the Matrix, but I'm glad I'm not in the Matrix anymore. It's getting bad, and this world is getting completely and totally silly at this point. I don't even know what to think of it anymore. So I just figured that I'm just going to work on my truck. That's all I'm going to do. I've been a single man for probably a few months now, but this post COVID dating scene thing is absolutely just horrendous. Everyone thinks they're a rock star, everyone thinks they're a celebrity, everyone can't wait to judge you, can't wait to put you in a box, a category, or make you fill a certain role in their life. And then getting past hello is ridiculous. Not the prettiest man that ever walked this planet, but I got a lot of good shit. I do. And the whole reason I have this is because I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't. I answer to my boss at work. That's it. When I get home, I don't have anybody nagging me. I don't have anybody telling me. I don't have any little ones running around soaking up my money. I don't have a woman who has four different kids from four different fathers in their past. I don't have that. I don't have a woman that I come home to and argue with because whatever, I want to do this or I don't want to do that. Guess what? If I want to do this, I do it. If I don't want to do that, I don't do it. I think Sam Malone over at Cheers, the show Cheers to anybody who is my age or might have a clue, he said it best when Fraser asked him, "Why shouldn't I marry Lilith?" And Sam gave him a laundry list of why it was better to be a bachelor. And one of the ones that stuck out to me was like, I can eat donuts for dinner and no one's going to tell me otherwise. There's no one's going to complain. I don't have to answer to anything. So, yeah, I'm another one of those guys who, in the last 2 years, has really been red pilled and thinking to myself, I'm going to go my own way. And it took me a long time, and I still struggle with the whole idea that I could be alone for the rest of my life. But I look at what's out there. I look at what I've had to deal with in the last 2 years, and maybe I'm better off. I think I am because everybody is either an OnlyFans, doing OnlyFans or culture. they think that they're a queen. You got to be 6 foot. You got to have six figures. You got to have 6 inches in your pants. You got to have 600 horsepower in your car. You need a yacht. Screw that. Screw that. This barn here was put up in the 1850s, 1860s. I love it. I don't want, yeah, I'll take a yacht. Sure. And if I ever had enough money to have a yacht and if I had the option like that, I would treat everybody that was riding on my coattails like absolute garbage because you weren't there when I was working up to this. You came in when I had already, you hung out by the finish line and you decided to go with me because I was across the finish line first or whatnot. So, I mean, this is definitely a strange rant, but I am pretty disappointed in my last conversation experience. It's absolutely just ridiculous how everyone is valuing themselves at 10 plus and you aren't anything. Like, these people aren't anything. Maybe not you who's watching this video. If you're watching this video, you're hanging out with me, you're cool in my book. But, there's certain things I want, there's certain things I don't want, and it seems to be that the things that I want when it comes to dating or whatever, just, it's like the programming in the woman that I'm interested in is completely like corrupted. You want a pretty woman, but you don't want, absolute garbage coming out of that. So it's like it's a pretty body, it's a pretty girl, but there ain't nothing worth, opening that book for because you just led to garbage. And you're dating another girl and things seem to be okay. You think you got a connection or anything like that, and then she turns out to be a drug addict. Like, I don't have that time. I don't have that room or that time in my life for that garbage. I've been sober for such a long time. Um, you know, just such a long time without any of that stuff going through me. Weed, beer, cigarettes. I mean, I quit cigarettes in 2007. I quit beer in 2004, and I haven't smoked any weed in ages. So, because I figure like I've got only so many years left on this planet to get done everything that I want to get done. And if I'm going to end up single for the rest of my life, which is what that's looking like, and of course, you can look at there's the Book of Numbers by Aaron Clarey, which proves that I will be single, and most of you will be single for the rest of your lives because women don't need men. And that's being proven, or at least we're being told this all the time. So I mean, me approaching a woman is a very rare thing. So if you're approached by me, consider it a blessing, I guess, because it's not going to happen in your life very often. And if you are approached, you're usually approached by garbage. But anyways, I have about 20 years physical years left on this body, and I want to get as much done as I possibly can. I really do. And to do that, I'm just going to have to try harder. I can't count on somebody else being in my world to take care of things like the dogs. It's something as simple as grocery shopping. All that is on me. I take care of the dogs, the grocery shopping, the lawn, anything that goes wrong with the house, anything that goes wrong with the cars. I go to work. I pay all the bills. I do all that stuff, every drop of it. With zero help. I got some neighbors that help me out here and there. Hey, Blue, what's going on, dog? Blue is coming to visit us. Blue, the old man dog. I do it all. I do it all here. And I still have time to work on crap like this. So I guess I'm just disappointed that this is the way it worked out. I mean, back in my high school days and college days and everything, it seemed like it was a lot easier to just meet and hook up and have like have something or whatever. But post this post COVID world is just not where I'm supposed to be, I guess. So I'm just gonna have to, bite my tongue and just try and get to my old age and then just knock off. All right, that's enough of me ranting about this stupid stuff. It just seems like there's more garbage out there than there is good stuff, and I'm disappointed. But I don't want to just give you guys the blues all day long, my blues. Because honestly, when you think about it, I don't really care. I'm bothered by it. I'm disappointed, mainly because what happened to me just happened recently. So I have to process it. Can't say I was surprised. I guess I would be more surprised if it went the other way. Like I met a pretty girl. She wasn't damaged. Holy moly, what a concept. But meet pretty girl. Pretty girl gives excuses as why she's damaged and why she's this, that, and the other thing and can't think of anything, like, oh my God, I can't, I'm like, I got so much going on in my life, everything. I was like, okay, well then, hey, see you later. Good luck with it. Don't think that this ship's going to stay at the port for forever waiting for your ass, because well, I don't see any value in somebody who's damaged themselves to the point like that. We all make our own decisions. You sit around and start blaming others for your poor decisions, then I'm not into that either. I make my own poor decisions, and that, I guess, trying to date in this post-COVID world is a poor decision. This is aluminum heat soak tape. And the reason I want to use this is because the clearance for these headers is a little tight for my taste. The fuel lines are run right between the frame rail and the engine, and now that the headers are right there, the fuel lines are probably about, I'd say, 3 inches away from the headers. I don't really like that, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to use this aluminized heat tape here. I'm just going to wrap it around these lines, and hopefully this all works out well. There's really a short section that just needs to be done. So I'm going to try and cut it as need be. I'm not trying to run this whole thing down in there. So this was about $8-9 for 32 feet on Amazon. Move my cup here. So I figured I'll hang out with you guys tonight rather than try and do anything else. I was going to do some decals, but I stopped feeling inspired there real quick, just cause. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this tape down into here, and then I'm just going to cut it to length, and then wrap it around here. And then I'm going to just roll it over onto itself. If anyone who's still with me here, I know it's kind of boring. I just don't want to fire. That's all I don't want. This is the aluminum heat tape. So I'm just going to wrap it around this fuel line, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the other fuel line, and hopefully it prevents future problems. I just didn't like the amount of heat that was coming off of the headers right there, right next to the fuel lines. And some people will just say, "Oh, just send it." Well, I don't have the luck of the lucky around here. So we end up with problems. that's not bad. Let's hope it stays on. Wrap it around on itself here. Let me just cut another section of it and put it on the back side just to keep it from peeling off. I'd hate to be having fun and then all of a sudden a ton of smoke starts pouring out from underneath the hood and we lose this thing to a fire. I had enough fun with fire in the last couple of years. I had a guy who turned out to be an absolute crackhead come over to the house to cut down a tree after giving me a long spiel about how he's insured and he's got a team and he's this, that, and the other thing. And you know, I was just stupid. I believed the guy's hubbub, and he came over and proceeded to rip the power cord right off the side of my house. Ripped it right off the side of the house, and that caused a fire in my basement. I clipped my fingernails this morning and can't get this started. There we go. Got it. Maybe. Yeah. Sorry, I'll have to read everybody's comments in a little while. They flash by and then they disappear and deep down in here. So for anyone just tuning in, I am putting on this aluminum heat shield tape on the fuel lines coming up between the frame rail and the headers, the engine exhaust headers. The clearance there is pretty tight. I mean, it was good like 4 or 5 inches, but the way the fuel lines run, they get pretty close to the header, and I just don't need that on my mind when I'm out driving this thing around. So I think I'd be much happier knowing that this thing is sealed up a little bit. I mean, it's just cheap insurance. These rolls of this tape were $9 shipped from Amazon. They're 2 inches wide, and between the 2 rolls that you get 32 feet. So I think that 32 feet ought to be enough. I think that ought to be enough to get it the way you want it, and then you're less likely to have a major issue. I'd hate to end up on Instagram as a viral video going, idiot builds mongrel truck promptly has engine fire. I don't want that. I'd rather have like, idiot builds mongrel truck cool, we like. You know, that's what I'd rather hear, but you don't know what the future of these things are. It's kind of like the Titanic. Everybody got on the Titanic going, ooh, nice fancy big boat. And then, now most of them are dead as a result. So that is the return line. All done. That's good. So that is shielded. That's good. Another thing I want to shield too is battery cable. Not that it was a real problem. That's probably got a good 3-4 inches between it and the header. But I'm still not 100% impressed with how close it really is. So I figure it can't hurt to add this. This is like the same stuff that they put on the space rover when they went to the moon. Just oops, I forget that the scissors are here. So I hope everybody's doing well. I was doing all right, and then I just realized that everybody, and this is going to sound like a broken record, but I just realized that every girl I happen to hit on or like turns out to be some form of narcissist or some kind of just self-centered, I'm not ready for blah kind of person. And you're like, okay, why did you even respond to me? Kind of thing. Like, you just like, I'd rather be ignored. But people are so addicted to attention these days. And I think it's just because they didn't get enough when they were growing up. So now that they got the internet and they can just have people messaging them all the time for no reason, they can just feel something's, whatever's missing in their life is kind of sublimated, I guess. I guess that would be the word. They feel that they can use people for certain circumstances in their life. So they got the guy that comes over and blows their back out and folds them up. They got the guy who tells them everything's going to be all right. They got the guy that's like, ew, I would never talk to him, but he's talking to me, and I just, when I'm lonely and bored, and I'm not that guy. I don't have time for that. I got stuff to do. So I'm just thinking to myself, it's sad that people are using other people just to satisfy needs and not being able to, be human anymore. Like, you get that, you find completeness in someone else. Or, you should probably show up to the scene already complete. But I mean, that person completes your sentences, and there's just a deep rooted connection. Now, you're just looking at everybody, and they're sitting there looking for an excuse to run a half-ass psychological diagnosis on you just so they can give themselves an excuse to not be a part of something. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's great. It's actually not turning out too bad. You guys can't see shit, but I'll show you guys in a little while here as soon as I'm done doing this. This isn't all that bad. As I said, I had this thing running. If anyone, either of you watchers are familiar with the channel, I had this thing running Memorial Day weekend. Much to my surprise, it fired up and it stayed running. And I attribute that to the electrical system was not completely hooked up when the truck was over at my buddy Justin's house. There was a lot of stuff that was just not plugged in, and so a lot of key systems weren't getting power, and so that attributed to the lack of running. That definitely didn't help any. And then I really don't want this here. I don't know if I can grab it up here. So yeah, that's cool. That looks good. That covers all the hose. I just love to get this out of the way. So yeah, I fired it up. Labor Day weekend, not really expecting any better results. I was expecting around 15 seconds and then shut down. But much to my amazement, I couldn't believe it, but it ran. and it ran consistently for a very long time. I was very impressed. I could not believe that it was doing what it did. So it did shut down after a little while, but it it's got no O2 sensor still. The O2 sensor's just shy. Here's the O2 sensor. It is shy of the plug by about a foot. So I'm hoping that somebody's nice enough to cut me off the piece of harness here on a V6 truck and send me that so I can make a jumper and I can get the O2 sensor all the way to where it's supposed to be. The other thing that's missing is the exhaust is not plumbed. I just have the collectors just kind of sitting there. So it's loud as hell. I'm wondering, I'm having issues with, excuse me, whether this bypass solenoid or bypass valve for the blower, because the blower is putting putting boost out from the moment the engine starts. That's been bypassed. I'm wondering if that's causing an air leak that makes it have a high idle because it's just pulling air, pushing air into the engine that it doesn't necessarily need. So I'm wondering if I should hook this back up and at least, give it some form of minor bypass, just so the vacuum can come up, because the vacuum's sitting at about 15 inches of mercury right now, which is, a regular non-supercharged engine is sitting at roughly about 21 inches of mercury is where that sits. And if this is sitting at 15, that's a little on the low side. But it does get about 6 pounds of boost when I stomp on it, which I didn't really get on it too bad because I was kind of surprised in the first place that it even ran. So that was in a state of shock right there. I was like, it's running? Holy moly, what's all this then? I'm not really expecting it to be running. But there it is. It's this close. But I'll run it again, and I'll have a video of me tinkering around with it here in the near future, because it's got to run. I definitely want to drive the thing. But I would just that's where this heat tape comes in. I just don't want to have a fire. I'm not going to be able to reach that tonight. I don't feel like laying on my back and dealing with that at all. So, yeah. It looks good though. It came out pretty good. I'll take some pictures of it and put it on Instagram or something. You guys can see it and enjoy it for what it is. That's pretty clear. I don't think that's going to be an issue there. But yeah, I just wish Nissan had come up with a better way of routing this. This is not exactly what I would call cool. Putting it. I'm using the original lines. I'm using the original Pathfinder metal lines that go all the way back to the fuel tank, and that with the headers now. With the original manifolds, it probably wouldn't have been an issue because the manifolds were in a different, they routed the exhaust a little differently, and it fit. They took into consideration the routing of the exhaust, but they didn't take into consideration what I was going to do with it 30 years later. So they kind of, I kind of had to make some, I'm going to have to make some modifications and some compensations here. But we're getting there. Think about it. If anybody here has been watching this series from the very beginning in 2017 when I brought this thing home, we're like, 60 plus videos into this series. From the day I went out and looked at it when it was over in Lima, New York. is where this was. Belonged to a guy who worked in the trucking industry. And I knew him. I never worked with him directly, but he knew all the same people I knew. And he had this white Pathfinder that he bought from a guy in Georgia. That's why the frame is so clean on this. It hadn't spent any time in New York yet, or at least a minimal amount of time in New York. New York is the death of all cars. That's why you don't want to buy a used New York car. You want to buy a used California car and bring that to New York. But he bought this from Georgia, and it was a pretty truck, but the guy, I don't want to get him in any kind of trouble or whatever, but he liked his marijuana. And he probably liked other stuff too. You know, when you're in the trucking industry, you're really kind of a self-destructive human being to begin with. I know, I was there. I didn't really enjoy it towards the end. But he got a little wasted one night. Don't know all the details, but he got wasted one night. And he crashed the truck. So when I bought it, this fender here was all caved in, and the hood was buckled, and the bumper, I don't know how he did this. So the fender was pushed in this way. The core support was damaged, but the bumper was shoved all the way over to the passenger side. Like it was sticking out of the side of the truck by like a good 8 inches. Don't ask me how you pull that one off. And then he blew the head gasket. He continued driving it, and he put stop leak in it, and it blew the head gasket, and because the bypass hose here right by the thermostat housing, that started leaking, and of course nobody wants to fix those because, you know, hey, that's expensive. Let's put some stop leak in it. That'll solve the problem. So he put some stop leak in it and drove it till it was pissing coolant all over the place. And so it pissed coolant everywhere, and eventually it got so hot that it locked up, and then it was done. And that's when he reached out to me and he goes, "Would you like to buy this Pathfinder?" And, you know, I played a little hardball because I knew he'd blown it up. So I was like, nah, I'm not really interested in it. You've heard it enough. I don't really want to give you any money for it or whatnot. And he disappeared for a while, and then he came back like a couple months later, and he gave me a deal. And I still said no. I'm like, nah, I don't really need any more projects. And then he came back like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that, and he goes, I'll sell it to you for dirt cheap. I'll sell it to you for $250, but I'm gonna keep the new tires and the wheels." And I was like, $250? All right, that's fine. And at the time, I didn't know what I was gonna do with it. I just knew that I was gonna have it. And I actually was debating putting a VG engine in my little green truck, which is sitting over here, because the green truck was having some mechanical issues. I never got around to actually doing that, but I was going to use the Pathfinder for parts until I saw the frame, and I was like, this frame is totally clean. It's very, very clean. I would feel bad ripping this truck to pieces and then just scrapping it, you know. So I ended up keeping it in its Pathfinder state with the intention of fixing it. I was gonna do it up. I was gonna put a used motor in it, and I had a 300ZX engine. If you go like, I don't know, 10 or 12 episodes into this series, you'll see I had a 300ZX engine that's still sitting over at Justin's shop. I got to bring it over here one day and finish putting a timing belt on it and the water pump. The engine was really nice. I was going to fix it all up. I was going to drop it in here. Then I realized that the early 300ZX engines, the VG from like 84, 85, have different mounts, different engine mounts, and you can't get the Pathfinder mounts to work on it. And I didn't want to weld, I didn't want to cob things. So that's when I got the idea of putting the VG33ER engine in something. So I bought another Pathfinder that had a VG33 swap already done to it, and the block was cooked. They also blew that up bad, but it had a lot of good parts on it because it had already been a VG33, and it had the pulley swap on it. So there's a, I forget where I have it, but I have the machined pulley that allows you to adapt the original Pathfinder pulley system to a VG33, because the VG33 is a serpentine belt and Pathfinder's regular V belt. So it had the pulley on it, and I was like, well, the pulley is worth what I'm paying for that truck. So I had that truck, I parted that out and scrapped it. So then I had the VG33 block, which is sitting in the back corner of the barn over here. That's my VG37 build that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a VG37ER build eventually. I have another supercharger sitting on the shelf over here that I got from a junkyard truck, and I have all the pulleys. I have everything to put it all together. I just got to send the heads out, get them done, and then I want to get the 256 cams in it and do the whole nine. And then I don't know what truck I'm going to put it in, but I'll have a VG33ER sitting on a stand. Benny, get over here. Come here. Come here. You're not going up there. So I was going to do that, and then the situation with my ex-fiance happened in 2018, where I had to move out, and I ended up buying this house, which was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. I bought this house, and so luckily I had a shop to move everything over here to. It's taken me a while to get to this point, but I was able to get these projects going. This truck got cut down to just the bare frame, and I sent it over to Justin's house to protect it, and I worked on it over there for the last for 3 years. It was actually, it was at his house for 4 years. It just came over to this house last fall, so it's only been at this house for about 8 months now. And this is where I bought the engine, the VG33ER, and put everything on paper how I wanted to do it. And everything that has been done to this truck was written out on paper, looking at schematics, looking at vacuum hose maps, looking at parts catalogs, going and looking at different trucks at the junkyard, comparing the differences between the Xterra, the Frontier, and the hardbody and the Pathfinder, and figuring out what parts from the Frontiers will work, what parts from the Pathfinder will work, what parts from the hardbody will work. And so if I needed a particular clamp or a particular bolt or a particular, harness piece or whatever, I would just sit back and wait till something like that showed up at the yard. And for a while, I was getting lucky that there was a lot of hard bodies floating around out there. There was a lot of, we ran into a bunch of supercharged Frontiers. Justin ended up buying a lot of the blowers and throwing them on eBay because there's good money in selling those. So he was doing that, but I had already had this blower and the other blower set up. So I was just kind of hodgepodging. I want an OEM look. So anytime that I ran into a situation where it was like, I want this to look like Nissan, the truck that Nissan never built, I would go and get the factory harness or the factory, holders, bolts, everything like that. I mean, there's a few non-Nissan bolts on this thing for some of the areas where it really did have to be modified, but so yeah, so that's been here since last October, and I've been coming out here, frequently since I can. I can just go walk right out of my house and walk right into the barn and start wrenches. I'll get an idea sitting on the couch or sitting in the living room or whatever. I'll get an idea and be like, oh, that's how I want to do this. So I'll pour myself a cup of tea and I'll go out to the shop and I'll tinker around with it. I don't hurt myself. I don't want to be out here for 18 hours. but I probably have good, 10, 20 hours into this thing here now that it's been here. So it's nice to get to this point. But I don't even know where I was going with this. I was just going down history lane, saying that this is the kind of stuff that you can build when you walk away. That's what I did. I walked away. I'm no longer part of this society anymore. I don't want to be. Not interested anymore. I'm not a TikToker. I'm not going to dance for TikTok. I'm not a robot. I'm not interested in talking to an AI. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. I'd rather sit on the deck and drink tea, play with the dogs, and then come out here and tinker with this stuff. And the whole point of the channel is to just get the information out there, to show that it can be built and it can do it. It started out with me showing like people how to like replace light bulbs and do oil changes and stuff. Basic routine maintenance, and then it just got completely hog wild from there. Like the one video that has the most views, and it's almost 100,000 views now, is the one on how to remove the door panel on your hard body. And I show you a trick on how to pop the little trim tab around the pull handle, how to pop that off without breaking it. And that's been my most popular video to date. So I think that's pretty cool. And then from there, it's just like, here's how to replace shocks. Here's LED light reviews. Here's how to replace, here's some autocross racing. Here's some off-road racing. Here's some junkyard trucks that I found, and just done that. And now it's up to almost 4,400 subscribers. It took 10 years to get there, but we're up at 4,400 subscribers. This is an accident that I even have gone this far, but I like everybody that I've come across in the community, and this is just helpful to people that may not even know they can do this, or it's like one of those things where you go so far past where you need to be that when you come back to where you need to be, it's like, oh, that's easy. So you're like, well, I really wanted to know what modifications I could do to this truck, and you're thinking like, what air filter, what muffler, what suspension can you do? And you're like, well, holy moly, you can drop an Xterra supercharged engine in these things. Yes, you can. So then that air filter is so much easier because you're like your mind's just been pushed much further than that. I used to be a catalog shopper. I would look at like Jegs and Summit and Speedway, and I'd be like, man, they don't have anything for the Nissan hard bodies in here. Of course not. That's not their market. But nobody has anything for the hard bodies anymore. They've been out of production since 1997 in the United States. And the Frontier and the Xterra, the D22 and the WD22, they've been out of production since 2004. So that's almost 20 years out of production. So who's going to start making stuff for these things? Like, start making stuff. I mean, yeah, you can get a nice fancy heavy duty bumper, a winch mount, you can get these things, but those things are like universal. You can mount them to any vehicle. What's specific? Where can you get a blower for a hard body? Where can you get I don't know. Just these are all things that I just dreamed up. A lot of people had a lot of information. Like the 240SX guys were very helpful in the information that they gave because they're doing crazy mods to their cars. So you want to learn how to put your trunk or your trunk, put your battery in the trunk. Well, the same concept goes for the hard body. You want to put the battery in the back, which this one's the battery's in the back now. So what do you got to do that? So it's not that bad. I mean, it's a lot of work, and I had to buy a lot of wire to do it. But I took the original battery cables because the battery sits here in this corner, obviously, and then the wire is probably about, I don't know, 4 feet, 4.5 feet long, going straight down to the starter with the fusible links attached to it. So I did is I took a knife and I just opened that harness up and just took the sheath off and all the tape off of it and just looked at the bare wire setup. I don't think I have one here to show you, but it was just bare just a bare battery cable. And I looked at how they constructed it, and I saw that the fusible links mount to the battery uh, lug with just a bolt. So you could take that bolt out, and then you've got the whole fusible link set up right here. So if you can get power from the trunk up to here, you can just bolt that in, and you got power to the fusible link. The fusible links are still here. Everything is still intact. So what I did is I ran a heavy gauge welding ground wire. You know, so this is like a, jeez, this wire is, where do I got any left over around here? Man, I can't find anything in this shop anymore. I really can't. Oh wait, hang on, I got some. Hold on, I'll be right back. So I picked this up from the electrical shop. This is grounding wire for a welder. So that's the power wire going from the battery to the starter. That's some pretty thick stuff right there. They're saying that this is, I don't know, 600 volt cable. Yeah, welding cable, flexible. I think this is like 10-aught. It might even be 8-aught or whatever. It's, or no, actually no, it's 1-aught. I'm sorry, this is 1-aught. So this is a pretty heavy duty stuff. So this runs directly from the battery to the starter. And then I bought a 4-gauge wire and I ran it parallel to this battery cable. So this goes underneath the cab and comes up right here, goes straight to the starter lug. I ran a 4-gauge wire parallel up, and I bought a 150 amp resettable breaker right here. And I mounted the 4-gauge wire to the breaker, mounted the breaker to the inner fender wall here, and then using that bolt, I mounted the fusible links to this. So I've got 150 amps going, breaker here just in case the wire breaks, but the fusible links will burn if anything from that point on grounds out. So I've got full power all the way through the cab. The heater blower motor works, the lights work, the horn even blows on this thing. The computer's got full power. Everything that goes through the fusible links has power. And so what I did then is I took, once I got it all sized up the way I wanted it, and it does take a couple tries to get it. Once I got this to the length that I wanted from here to the starter, and then the 4-gauge wire set, I taped one each end. I pulled it back out of the truck, and then I made a sleeve that goes all the way to the back. So I bought that, you know, the heat shrinks, not heat shrink sleeve stuff, but somewhere in here. Oh, this stuff right here. Yeah, this insulation stuff right here. I bought a whole huge roll of this, and I ran it from right here underneath the firewall all the way back and up to the battery. And then when it split, I ran more pieces left and right, one for positive, one for negative, and that goes to the battery box back there. Instead of using the factory lugs for the battery that Nissan uses, where it's the bolt through the side and it kind of tightens it down, I had bought many years ago, and I got ripped off on these things, and I was very pissed off because the actual lugs were inexpensive, but the freight was just out of this world. There was from a military surplus store. They're a military lug that goes on a Type 24 battery or whatnot, but it has an extended stud. It has a tightening stud that tightens it to the battery, and then it has an extended stud where you can put ring terminals on it to add more power circuits to it. And I can do the same thing here with this 150 amp breaker right here. I can go in and add, and I actually do have one here. This is going to be for external lighting and whatnot, but hold on. This blade fuse holder right here, this thing right here, this has see if I can spots for a bunch of 10 amp fuses, and then there's a power lug here, so I can add different circuits and different lights to the setup. So that plan is once this thing is running, and then I can start working on the decorative side of it. There's a spot down here underneath the fusible links where I can mount this, and then I can just use spade terminals to mount and add different wiring. Now, one of the things that I do still have to wire and address is the electric fan. I do have to get the electric fan running. I have the wires right here. I'm going to do that with a relay setup, just so it's not going to draw a huge amount of power right off of the switch or whatever switch I end up using. So I'm going to have that dedicated. I'm going to have that dedicated to the to whatever power is on when the truck is on, when the key is on. So the fan's going to run all the time. This supercharger, just running for the few minutes that I had it, this supercharger gets so hot. I'm glad that Roadie Fab made these vents for me. That was a great collaboration between me and Roadie. I sent him a chunk of hood. I sent him one of these. This is a chunk of hood that I cut out from this spot, and I sent him this, and I told him how I wanted it to be made. He gave me a couple test sample digital graphics, went back and forth, and I ended up settling on, or choosing these ones. I didn't settle. I felt like I was getting a great design, so I wasn't settling on it. I was excited to get it. So I went with this design. So that's going to scoop up through vacuum. That's going to scoop up heat out of underneath the hood. But having the fan here pulling and blowing across the blower, that's going to just pull air out, and it's going to go straight out of the hood. I hope that keeps underhood temperatures down. You'll also notice that I don't have any hood insulation under here. So you will hopefully hear the supercharger. Just to touch back on the fusible link thing, this is the fusible link holder. If you take the battery apart, or the battery cable apart, this is how it goes. So this is the piece right here. If I can get these to come out. Come on, come on. Come on, you. Get out of there. Wants to go, but there we go. Okay. So, fusible links. I grab these every time I go to the junkyard and I find them, I grab them. This is the piece that actually bolts to the battery cable itself. You'll see these. You can undo the battery cable and take this whole thing out. And this will allow you to be able to attach this to any power source that you want the fusible links to get the power source from. So if you've got, say you've got your battery relocated and you want and you do what I did, had a remote power source right on the fender wall, then all you got to do is just mount this to the fender, to that remote power source, and you can have your fusible links anywhere under the hood, and then this will just plug right in. And then also in that wire harness, there's a black wire with a pink stripe in that same harness. That's your starter signal wire. So you got your main fat cable going down to the starter. To trigger it, you got the black wire with the pink line. So you can isolate that from the harness. You don't even have to unplug it from anything. You just leave it plugged in. There's actually a connector here that has about 4 wires in it. One of them is the oil pressure switch. So you can leave those 2 wires connected if you want to keep the light on the dashboard. I am using, since the oil pressure switch for the VG33 is on the driver's side now, not the passenger side, I decided to go with an actual electronic gauge. So I have a sending unit in the filter housing right here. But on the VG30, the sensor is on the passenger side underneath the exhaust manifold. So that same harness that has the trigger wire also has the sending unit wire. You can isolate that. So if you look, you can see the starter wire visible right here. It's just a single wire. And when you follow the harness, it goes all the way up to the steering column where the key is. Just follow that, and you can trigger the starter just using that. You can take that whole harness apart, and as long as you keep the fusible links and that pink wire with the blacks, or the pink wire, black wire with the pink stripe, you've still got the ability to have power inside the cab for everything, lights and starter control. You just got to move the cable back to the battery, and that's all that's back there is just a positive and a negative. That's it. And I did the negative. I mounted the negative to the frame on the Pathfinder, and there's a previous video, you'll probably be able to see it. I couldn't tell you which one it is, but a previous video I did. There's actually a spot right in the middle of the one cross member on the Pathfinder with a perfectly drilled hole. So I just took the negative cable from the battery, routed that down, and mounted it right to that cross member with a factory nut and bolt, and then I just I did a protective coating on the cable. So it's probably about a 6-foot cable when you add leg and leg, but the ground is in the back of the truck. And then the positive just runs up along underneath the floorboard, or both positives is the 4 gauge and the 1/0 both come up underneath the floor. So that's pretty much how I relocated the battery in this truck. I still have to solid mount everything. I wasn't going to solid mount the battery housing or the battery box yet until I finish the floor in the bed. It can drive. I can run 2 screws through it and hold it in place while it'll go up and down the road for a few test runs. But once I get the floor done, I'm going to have a mill actually cut me the panels to the thickness and the width that I want and the length. And then I'm just going to drill them right back there, and I'll have a nice wood bed. I'll stain it and all that. So, because I do want a couple things on this truck to be kind of nice and everything, but that's all for after we just make sure that it absolutely runs. The other thing that I did was the same thing I did on my old red truck. This was an automatic. The computer is still an automatic. This proves, the fact that this runs, proves that you can run a manual transmission using an automatic ECM. And you'll actually be a little bit better off because you don't need a clutch switch, which can be dangerous if you're not cautious and you start it and it's in gear and it decides to take off on you. So you may want to just take note of that it will start in gear and it will take off. But you don't have any kind of rev limiter on this thing because the automatic transmission would automatically limit the RPMs on the engine just because the automatic transmission is a fluid resistance, and it comes a certain point where the engine just doesn't overcome the fluid resistance inside the torque converter, and that kind of acts as a natural RPM rev limiter. So this thing could just bang right off at 8,000 RPMs all day long and blow itself up, and I'd be the dumb guy that did it. But to get it to start, and this is definitely a liability thing, so if any of you follow this and you go and you start it and it goes through your house and and whatever, don't come to me because I'm telling you right now, this is very dangerous. This is not safe. Keep in mind that it can run away. There is a relay right here that you can make a jumper wire and jump the inhibitor switch, and you can remove all of this cabling here. This is all the sensors and everything. This whole harness here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plugs right here. Those all go down to the transmission. Some of them are reverse lights and stuff like that, which I'm going to have to sort out. I'm going to have to actually run a wire up from the switch and plug it in here so I have reverse lights. But most of it's like all your shift control valves, your park neutral switch. And I was going to leave the park neutral switch in here, leaving it in neutral or park so the truck would start because it was always thinking it was in park. But it's just, once we found out where the wiring was over on this side of the engine, over here where these relays are, I just put a jumper in there, tied it down. It starts just fine. It doesn't care. I don't need any of those connections. So the auto ECM does not care that it is a 5-speed, just based on the fact that it's looking for a park neutral switch. Once you jump it until it's in park, it'll start, it'll run. It doesn't change the fuel maps or anything like that. That's entirely up to the O2 sensor. It works fine in my old red truck. I put, 15,000 miles on that truck. exactly the same way. It was originally an automatic transmission, and I swapped it over to a 5 speed, and I tricked it by jumping the park neutral switch at the relay, and I never had a problem. Never ever had a problem. It always started fine, ran fine. I found that that particular truck, I really enjoyed that truck. That was my favorite truck in the fleet before the frame broke. So I still miss it when I think about it. It's outside the door here, but it's not drivable. Um, yeah. So cool. Any questions? I know I just threw a bunch of shit at you guys here. Just long, long stuff. I don't know. I enjoy doing this. It's kind of like my own personal therapy, I guess. Because as I said, this truck was completely drawn out on paper before it was even started. I have drawings in my old book of what I wanted it to even look like, and I've tried to follow that map from beginning to end. And then if I was, if I came to a point where I had to stop and figure out what the next process was on this, like, you know, how am I going to wire this, or how am I going to route that, or can I use this mount? Can I use this or whatever? I would go home. This is, back when the truck was over at Justin's house. I would go home with the paperwork, and I'd sit down with the schematics, sit down with the all the factory service manuals. I was using a 1990 service manual, a 1992 service manual, a 2003 service manual, and I was just kind of I put all the schematics side by side, figured out, can this thing run with this sensor? I mean, with it being a 2003 engine, they had a lot more stuff going on in here, like a crank position sensor, stuff like that. This thing didn't have a crank position sensor. The 90 and 92, they didn't really care. The crank position sensor was inside the the distributor. The distributor for the Xterra does not have an external coil, so it is computer controlled. The coil is internal, so I had to figure out how to mount the coil. The coil's right here. Let me move my arm. Here's the coil. It's underneath this nice fancy OEM coil protection sleeve. So that I figured out a way to mount the coil to the supercharger. And then I put that's actually a 300ZX distributor, um, a later 300ZX, not a Z32, a Z31. But I bought a bunch of VG parts over the years, and I had a bunch of distributors, and one of them was a 300ZX. I had a Pathfinder distributor, which they're exactly the same. They're exactly the same. So don't think that this is anything fancy. It's like the 240SX in the hard body distributor. There's no difference. But the windows, they have windows and lights in them. So the light, the thing's spinning, and the light is looking for a particular window, which tells it to trigger. So once it gets that signal, it grounds out and it sends the spark through. Well, the Pathfinder one that originally came, I don't know where the hell I got it. I thought it came with this engine, but the Pathfinder one, we were spinning it. If you have the key on with the engine off and the distributor out, and you spin the distributor by hand, you can hear the injectors click in that order is when that rotor is pointing to that cylinder or just before that cylinder. So you should hear click, 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 click. And so when we were trying to get it to start, and it would start and it would bruh, bruh, bruh. It just kept, it just kept shitting itself every time we tried to start it. We pulled the distributor out, spin it, and we noticed that we would be listening for the injectors, and you would see gaps, and the injectors didn't ever fire in the same order on this distributor. It was really weird. We couldn't figure it out. We were just like pulling our brains out. We're like, doesn't make any sense. So I put this other distributor, this 300ZX distributor, in it, which was a spare. It was sitting in a box, and when we went to crank it, then it actually started trying to fire and fire properly, and that's when it ran for 15 seconds and then shut off. And then I noticed that we didn't have enough electrical. We didn't have the fusible links hooked up properly. There was that one damaged fusible link that I came across, that was causing the computer to not have all the power. So the tachometer wasn't working, the heater wasn't working, nothing was working. And so I got the new fusible links. The tachometer now works properly and it runs and it stays running. It just idles extremely high. So I want to tinker with it. This is where I'm going with this story. Just an old man meandering here through story after story. I want to run this thing longer because one of the things I want to try is pinching off this hose here. This is the idle air control motor hose that I put on this thing. So it runs from the air filter housing here back to the idle air control motor. The idle air control motor is off of a VG30, not a VG33. They're the same mount, but the VG33 back. So here's a VG30 idle air control valve. You can see a 2-pin plug right here, and this sits on the bottom of the intake manifold, and the computer opens and closes the valve, and that adjusts the idle speed accordingly. This is the VG33 idle air control valve, and if you side by side them, you'll see, well, let me orient them correctly, you'll see that the mounts are exactly identical. So that's this is the VG33, this is the VG30. They mount identical. The only difference that I found is that the VG33 has an additional plug on it, aside from having a different control plug for the motor. The motors are almost identical as well. So, but this valve itself has this spring-loaded control piece here, which the VG30 has no idea what to do with. So if you look in the hole here, you can see the spring right in this hole right here. The VG30 has no idea what to do with that. That's not part of it. And this is actually wired backwards. So according to the schematic, this is wired backwards. So when the VG30 was asking for more air, it was actually cutting off air. So that's when I decided, well, if they mount the same, why don't I just put the original idle air control motor back in its place? The computer will know, and I don't have to splice any wiring. It'll know that if it wants more air, it'll just open up more air, and if it wants less air, it'll just close it. And that helped. That definitely helped. But I'm wondering if there's still so many things to sort, but I'm wondering if this idle air control motor itself that I put on here is either sticking or I'm wrong. I could be wrong. So what I want to do is while it's running, I want to pinch this line off and starve the idle air control motor of air and see if the idle comes down. So if the idle comes down, then I know that the idle air control motor is the problem, and either A, I have to find a way to restrict this or control it somehow, or B, find out how it runs without it and maybe eliminate the whole thing altogether and just say, I'll just run it on a warm day. So these are all things that I'm trying to sort out, but that's the big thing right now is the high idle. If I can get the idle to come down to just under 1,000 and just stay there, and it doesn't want to spit and sputter or try and stall, then I'll know I can run it up the temperature. Now that I've got this heat tape on the fuel lines, I definitely can run it up the temperature and see how it reacts. See how it, as it gets warmer and everything's set to temp, will the idle come down? And once the idle's down, will it bog or hesitate when you step on it? And what is the vacuum rating? If it's supposed to be less than a naturally aspirated engine, then that's okay. But the boost gauge is saying 15 inches of mercury, and I'm used to seeing 21. So if I block this off and it goes up to 21, then hey, guess what? I found my vacuum leak. It's the idle air control motor. It's allowing additional air into the system and is lowering the amount of vacuum that the engine's producing because of that. If it doesn't affect it at all, doesn't change anything, and the idle stays high, then I've got other problems. I was thinking maybe the throttle cable was causing the throttle to stay open, but it closes all the way. So I'm not terribly worried about that. It does close all the way. You can feel it close all the way. So I don't know if that's the problem, but just the fact that it ran, I'm not surprised that there's some things that I have to sort out. This is all stuff that we wouldn't have known a year ago. If it was only going to run for 15 seconds and then shut itself off and none of the gauges worked or anything, there was no way we would have known that we had an air leak of any kind. And we also wouldn't have known if we have any kind of temperature related issues because it wouldn't get up to temperature. I wasn't going to run it without any coolant in it or for very long. I mean, I did run it with no coolant, but not for longer than a few seconds at a time. So now it's got a full belly of coolant. So I can run it up to temperature and not feel, guilty about it. It's not going to well, I hope it doesn't overheat. I'm always still worried that I've got head gasket issues that I should have addressed when I had the engine out. I should have done the head gaskets. I always say that to myself. But if I do end up having to do the head gaskets on this thing, I am going to replace the camshafts while I'm in there. I am going to put the 256 cams in it and call it a day. Actually, I do have 300ZX cams I could put in, which are a little bit better without having to spend an ass load of money. Because these VG33s were neutered. They got very, very weak cams. And my reasoning for not doing a cam swap while it was out of the truck was the very fact that what if I go through all that hassle and none of what I thought was going to worked out and this truck never ran. Then I had just added a whole layer of extra work that didn't make a world of difference at all. So I wanted to get it to run first. Then over time we can modify the certain things that we want to modify. But that's really it. I guess I could tie this into the fact that I'm kind of glad that the girl that I was talking to don't want to talk and or wants to just pretend thinks. Let me rephrase that. The girl that I was talking to thought that she was all this and that she could just treat me like a simp. And then I would be like, "Oh, baby, where are you? Oh, what are you doing? What's going on? Let me give you all the attention in the world. Do you think And then she could just be like, "I'm going to pick and choose." That's not what I do, and I don't recommend anyone else doing that. It's like a version of thirst trapping. You get a hot girl on the hook, and all of a sudden you think you got something. And then they just start playing these really stupid games. And you're like, nah, maybe for a guy who sits around and just plays video games all day long and maybe hasn't had a girl in his life or anything like that. But you got to remember that I was with my ex-fiance for 11 years. And in 11 years, you see a lot of shit. And a lot of shit will turn you off. And then since then, I've dated a bunch of girls since then. And especially post-COVID dating. As I said, that absolutely has wrecked everything for me, where I'm just like, oh, I don't care how hot you are. You're bringing that kind of baggage to the game? I don't think so. I'm sorry, but, I'd rather stay home with the dogs, hang out with you fine folks, work on this turd, and pat myself on the back that I avoided a drama type situation where it was just going to be like she was either always going to thirst trap me and drag me along and not and never be able to actually give me any real time, or B, I was just like a fill-in for, oh, I'm bored right now, entertain me. I don't entertain you. I'm sorry, that's not my job. I have other things to do. I'm doing decals for another company right now. My buddy's company, Finger Lakes Vintage Auto Parts. I'm trying to do some logo designs for him. That's money. I'd rather make money. So the Rich Cooper, if you guys ever check him out, I don't like everything about him because he always has to flaunt his McLaren every single time he's in a video. He's like, "Oh man, 600 horsepower, 6-inch wiener," like that stuff. But he's right when he says, "Don't chase people, just chase money." That's all you want to do. Just chase excellence. Just do everything you possibly can in your life to make your life as awesome as it possibly can be. And as I said, when I heard that, I was like, you know what? I don't feel so lonely. I really don't, because it's their loss for one. Because I mean, I do some pretty cool shit, and they choose the bad ones. So they're choosing the rich, pretty boy, who, or he may not even be rich. He might just be pretending to be rich because this girl was telling me that her whatever boyfriend of 4 or 5 years or whatever. Oh, we lived in this really nice house. We had all this stuff and everything, and then he went bankrupt. Oh, you know what happens? You know how you get bankrupt? That's when you buy more stuff than you have money for. That's usually how that goes. So, yeah, he wasn't as well off as she thought he was, but he must have been really cute, I guess. Who knows? Me, everything in here is paid off. The only thing I have bills on is my Subaru, which I didn't want in the first place, but I need it to go to work, and the house, which I do want, and I like the house. Those are the only two bills that I have that of things that I don't officially own. I mean, the house is in my name, the car is in my name, but I'm still paying the bank. But credit cards, zero. Other car payments for everything else that's here, zero. Save as much money as you can. Can you excuse me for 1 minute? Pardon me for 1 minute. Hey, guys. Shh. Quiet. Sorry about that. That's the old man just barking away over there. Yeah, and it allows me to be able to do to tie into not having these things. I can eat donuts for dinner. In the great words of the great Sam Malone, who everybody says is a very sad case, but in the end, it kind of like may have been sad back in the 80s because everybody was still getting into relationships. The idea of asking a girl out, going on a date. You wanted to do the Disney thing at that time. You're like, oh, this girl's beautiful. I want to make her mine. Now you're just kind of like, the games we play are so stupid. It's like you want a girl, but you have to pretend like you're not interested. She's going to pretend like she's not interested and she's busy, and that's going to make you this, that, and the other thing. And then you get together, and then you just, she wants to go off and do her own thing, and you're a high value male, and you don't care. You're just making your millions of dollars, and you couldn't care less if she was alive or dead. That's the dating scene nowadays, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm not even going to deal with that. Not at all. I want, if there was going to be somebody in this world, it was going to be a partner who was going to help, build some kind of fortress, some kind of amazing empire out of this place. Be it with the dogs, me, any businesses that came with it, and all that stuff. Having fun, going off camping, taking this truck out and going to have fun, going doing autocrossing, whatever, and then she can enlighten my world or enrich my world, however. You know, um, that would be amazing. But I think those days are long gone. I think it's just now the game. We're just doing the dance. And I absolutely can't stand the dance. So you meet a girl that you think is cute, and the first thing you have to do is start treating her like crap because because she has daddy issues and she's had nothing but terrible boyfriends in the past. She's not used to being treated right. So if you treat her right, she's going to look at you like you're a weak man. You're just like, the logic doesn't even add up. You're like, what are you doing? How do you play this game? How do you play this game? You can't just be like, as I'll quote Rich Cooper again, because this is for anybody who's single in this video or on this channel who's looking for this advice. This is the best advice that I've ever heard, and this will save you a ton of time, like wasted time, because I'll tell you, everybody will tell you that time is your most valuable asset. You don't get it back. You have to spend it wisely. So if you're going to do what this girl was doing to me, which is I'm only going to talk to you when I'm bored and when I feel like it and all this other stuff, that only lasted for one day for me because I was like, okay, if she had, and this is what it is, if they don't have burning desire for you, don't even bother. Don't even bother, because if she likes you, she will show it. They will show you that they like you. They will find a way to go out with you. They will find a way to communicate with you. They will find a way to want to be around you and talk to you. If they take 24 hours to respond to a text, don't even bother. Don't. Just move on, because it's not even worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your effort. You're not going to get her back. She's not interested. That's what happened to me. I didn't even say a word. I'm just like, 24 hours, no text. Fine. Thank you. Actually, thank you. You've weeded yourself out. I've got this aluminum tape that I bought from Amazon. I am, instead of wasting even $5 on a coffee date or $150 on a dinner date, I got something done on my truck. My truck is now that much closer to being done. So in the end, she can go off and get her back blown out by Chad Thundercock and then complain, we're all the good men. Meanwhile, I'm going to be out here having fun with my truck. I'm going to be driving around going to car shows, going off road, going camping. And guess who I'm not taking with me? Ho ho, her. Or anyone else who wants to treat me like that. That is not worth it. It is not worth it. So I was going to make a video about this, say, that was going to be titled, Don't Worry About Her, Just Finish Your Project. But I do have female viewers and I don't want to offend them. So I was going to try and think of a cooler title, like, Don't Worry About Them, Just Finish Your Truck. Because that's the whole point. Because I know there's girls out there that are probably sitting there going, man, all these guys are just piles of garbage and, all this other stuff. And you're like, well, don't worry about them. Go out to the garage and finish your truck. Because this is going to bring you way more happiness than this absolute disaster that we've created for ourselves in this post-pandemic dating world of internet, like where you can just swipe. And you're like, you're swiping. You're like, oh, like you're shopping for a Ferrari, and that's the thing, is everybody's looking for a Ferrari, but they can't afford the maintenance. So you're like, okay, you found your Ferrari. I don't know. I'm glad this girl weeded herself out early on, because imagine, she could be a disaster. It could be like, get together. We're together for like, 6 months, a year, whatever. Usually takes 90 days for someone to show you their true colors. So let's say 90 days. 90 days. In the first 90 days, she's been nothing but wonderful to me. Like, oh, Devin, blah, 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 let me get you a sandwich. And then I'll be like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. So I lower my guard. I let her into my world. And then all of a sudden, she just starts doing what one of my ex-girlfriends did to me. Start gaslighting me. You did this horrible thing to me. You're not the same person that you were. You're not this, you're not that, and all this. And now I got to go find myself. And I think I'm going to go traveling. And, I'm just not in the right headspace. It's like, you've been in a relationship with me for a year and a half. And now all of a sudden you decide you're not in the right headspace. Okay, that's great. Go. Just go. Don't have time for it. I'm getting old. I'm getting creaky. I'm getting cranky. I don't have time for that. I'm building a truck. And this will be, this is what I'll be known for, because this will go up on Instagram or something. People may never even give a shit. Who knows? But, this is what I built. And when I'm dead, this truck will probably still be around, because I'm going to store it in the garage. It's not going to get rusted away. It's going to be in the garage. Maybe somebody will be nice enough to drive it down to the Nissan Museum and put it in there along with the green truck. Who knows? But I do know that instead of putting up with this daddy issue, I'm going to play the game and do this stupid little dance where I have to pretend to hate you when I do really like you. I'd rather be doing this. This is way more productive with my time. I'm way happier after doing this. I can sit down on my couch and go, okay, this was a small feat, but it's a big part of the project, because this is going to help prevent a fire. And it's going to allow me to work on other parts of the truck. So I got something else. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to go drive this thing around town. I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to go and I'm planning on buying a camper, a small camper, like a one-person, one-dog camper that this thing can tow. And I can go out and drop the camper off somewhere and then just go and do some trail riding and stuff like that. That'd be just totally awesome to be able to do that. Guess who's not going to be coming along for the ride? that girl from tonight, she's not going along for the ride. Who knows? And then she could be sitting home in her house going, "Where are all the good guys gone?" I'll laugh at anybody that asks that question. Where are all the good guys gone? Friend zone. You friend zone them, you fools. Unreal. But anyways, it doesn't matter because I'm doing way cooler things. And I'm glad that you guys, the people that have been with me this whole time, have listened to this rant for an hour and 35 minutes. I'm glad that I'm interesting enough for you guys to hang around that long. So, that's what I got. What are you doing, dog? Don't do that. That might be worth something someday. Probably won't, but who knows. Anyways, um, I guess I have a video editor who's very excited about doing some stuff. He's been hounding me about getting some videos to him so he can do some stuff. And so I think that I'm gonna give him a. He did something for me. He did an intro for me, which I haven't used yet, but I like the intro. He did a good job with it. I think I'm gonna send him some future videos to do some editing. I think that'll be cool. So that means that Pounding Rocks Truck Shop is expanded by an extra person. I did do a lot of editing a few years ago when I would sit down and I had a GoPro camera and I would do music and all that stuff. And you know what I found out? It didn't pay any better than what I'm doing right now. This channel usually gets about $40 to $60 a month, which is great because this is where this shit comes from. All this whole truck has really been built by YouTube money, which is cool because I'll just reinvest it into the truck so I can do more videos and then make more money and then reinvest it in the truck. And that's just how it's been. And it's all from viewers like you putting up with stupid commercials, which I do appreciate if you're still here with that. But yeah, the video editor is going to be kind of cool. I think it'll add a little bit of a dynamic to it rather than, like this household, you know, I don't know. I can't even describe it. Like really low budget. I've done really low budget videos since I moved into this shop, and maybe he'll spruce it up, and maybe we'll get a few more viewers, get some more comments, get some more ideas and stuff like that. I don't know. And I do want to get some more on the road stuff. I haven't really done anything. I did post a short video the other day of me driving the 720 down the road. It was about an 18-second video, which you get monetized for short. So I figured I would try it out and see how it is. I got about 600 views. I did a video about how much I hate the new Pathfinder. That got about 15,000 views, which is pretty crazy. Because I do hate the new Pathfinder a lot. It looks terrible. It does not capture the spirit of the old Pathfinder by any means. And anytime that I see it driving off road, and I've said this in the video before, anytime I've seen it driving off road, it always just reminds me of like a husband and wife who took the wrong turn somewhere and are now arguing about where they should turn around and where's the map. And the husband doesn't want to look at the map, and the wife is freaking out because she's pissed off at him about something that he did 6 weeks ago when he didn't compliment her dinner or whatever. It's like that's just how it looks to me. It doesn't look like, like if you go to Pathmaker Productions and you look at what he's built in the terms of a two-door Pathfinder that's just, rock bouncing and just going up these crazy mountains and everything. That's a Pathfinder to me. That's how it should be. Nissan doesn't have anything in its lineup right now that it's even remotely close to being able to do that. And you would think that with all the talk about apocalypse and nuclear war and all this World War III stuff that's like been coming on lately, you would think that some of these automakers would take advantage of the situation and go, "Here's your bug out vehicle that you've been waiting for," like a Land Cruiser or Patrol or just something wild that comes out, winch on it, it's all ready to go. You're like, "Here's your Mad Max, we got you covered." If you got to go out into the wilderness, you can even it holds gas cans, and there's even a spot to put a turret on the top if you got to. I think that should be the thing. And in terms of the cars, I think they should start bringing back like the spirit of the 1950s in their cars. But do them if you want to do it really cool. If you want to do EVs really cool, do them with 1950s bodies. You can do them out of plastic or aluminum or whatever, but just make sure that they look like cars that could have been built in the 1950s, and then just put EV engines in them. And sell like hotcakes because I know I'd buy one. I'd want to have a 50s design car with the wings and everything. Nissan doesn't have the balls to do that anymore. They just don't. I mean, just look at what they've done to themselves, and it's absolute complete shame. I would be ashamed to be like, this is what it is. I mean, I thought the Sentra looks great, but you can't get it with a you can get it with a 6 speed if you buy a base model. Come on, you can't even get a 6 speed or a 5 speed in the Altima. Come on, you can't even get it in the Maxima. Come on, and now they're gonna make the Maxima EV. Come on. Just disappointment after disappointment. And so after a while, you're just kind of like me when it comes to like the dating scene. You're just like, ugh, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm done. I'm good with that. I don't need that. I'll build all my future vehicles. Thank you. And I won't be buying anything new. I won't be taking any loans out for anything. I'll tell you that much. Because true freedom comes in the fact that you don't have any credit out. You want to have cash only. That's it. So, all right, I'm shot. I'm tired. I've stayed with you guys for an hour and a half. You guys got any last minute questions or anything? Let me see if there's any chats that I need to look at. Let's see here. Let's do. Can I see all chats? I want to see all chats. And it says actions. I don't want that. Let's see. Live chat. All messages. All right. Give me all messages. Where are they? Okay. I don't want that. All right. So M Green says, God be with you on dating. Okay. Thank you, M Green. I hope so. M Green says, I started the timing chain replacement and it froze over where I stay. And now I have to do a possible rebuild, huh? Well, that's not good. And then he says, dang. And he says, I've wondered about, we were talking about the battery relocation. So, and then he says, keep the lives going. I catch them when I'm able. So M Green is really the one who blew up the most video comments tonight. So thank you, M Green, for all your contributions to tonight's chat. If anyone wants to follow me, I am Pounding Rocks, that's with an X, or pounding_rocks at Instagram. I'm also Water Street Decals on Facebook. So if you see Water Street Decals that looks like, I don't have a card on me. Actually, I do. Hang on. Let me get you a card. Hold on. Really want to get this green truck out for a drive, but the weather sucks. Look for this logo. If you see this on Facebook, this is the right Water Street Decals to be at. I make all kinds of Nissan decals now for the hard. Excuse me. Whew, that's a great marketing message right there. I just started making outline decals for the tailgates. So the lettering is an outline instead of a solid letter. So if you have a painted black stripe like I have, it looks like it's black and green. If you haven't painted your tailgate and you do a different stripe, it brings out the color of your vehicle that's behind the lettering. So I'm doing those for $15 shipped in the US. I'm also doing the trim badges like SE, SEV6, XEX, XEV6, all that. I'm doing those in outline as well. I can do those in any color, yellow, blue, green, pink, white, black, all that. Those are $10 a piece shipped in the United States if you buy just those. If you buy a tailgate logo and you want to add a trim badge on it, the trim badge is just an additional $5 on top of it. So $20 gets you a tailgate logo, solid or outline, and a trim badge, solid or outline, in the color that you choose. So keep that in mind. Water Street Decals. I am based in New York State. All proceeds go to taking care of the dogs, building the trucks, and keeping the lights on around in here. And last, before I let you guys go, and I can't believe there's still people watching this after I'm just like losing my mind. Well, I definitely completely forgot what I was going to say. That's just awesome. What was I gonna tell you guys? Man, I do terrible live feeds. I got man, I do terrible live feeds. But yeah, I'm gonna try and do some more car shows. I'm gonna try and do some more stuff with the 720 too. It's funny that I've met more people, more 720 owners in this area than I have hard body owners. I see one hard body driving around this area. I have seen at least in the last 3 months, I have seen one, two, three, four, five, six, seven 720s in the last 3 months versus one hard body in the last year and a half, not including my own. So it's funny how like the 720s happen to survive a little bit better up here than the hard bodies did. So that's kind of wild. So I would like to get out to some more car shows and look around. There was a white 720 I saw yesterday. I don't know where it's from. I just kind of caught it at the corner of my eye. But yeah, if you guys leave me a comment down below, I'll see what I can do to accommodate um, any future videos that you guys may want to do. And I will do some more junkyard. I'm just waiting for another V6 Pathfinder from 95 and older to show up in or a V6 four-wheel drive hard body from 1994 on, or 1994 new and to 1990. If that shows up, I'll be going out to the yard and I'll film that and I'll bring you guys that. So yeah, so pounding underscore rocks Instagram, Water Street decals, um, junkyards, trucks, 720. I really think that's it. I think I'm gonna go and just melt to the couch and become a blob. And I hear Blue barking, and he wants me to bring him in. So if you guys have any more comments, now's the time. I'll answer any questions you got, or else I will bid you guys good night. M. Green says he sees 5 hard bodies a day. I don't know where you're located, but you must not be located in central New York because that just ain't happening. I don't even see them in the junkyard anymore. 10 years ago, I could guarantee that I'd see at least 1 to 5 in the junkyard, and that's how I got all my parts. That's how I built this. It's how I built the red truck. It's how it's just my whole second floor above us is all hard body parts. And I will be having a fire sale. I'll be getting rid of all most of this stuff because I won't need it. I'm not going to build another one of these anytime soon, and I have all the parts to build the other one, so I'm just going to hold on to that. But I will have a fire sale. There will be a lot of hard body parts to buy. But yeah, you just don't see them anymore. It says, "Where did you get the bed?" Oh man, that is the number one question that I've been asked. Hang on 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I'll answer that question, but you're gonna have to hang for a second here. Benny, come here. Benny, come here. Benny. answer a question. Okay. All right, I apologize. There we go. So the question that M Green gave me was, where did I get the bed cover for the green truck on my cover photo? Which I assume that you found my Facebook page, which is where I've had that. I bought that tonneau cover 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. I bought that in 2008 or 9, and I got it from AutoAnything.com. I don't know if they still sell them now, but it's the company is X-Tang, and it's the brand is, or the model is Tough Tonneau 2, which is TUFFTUNNO, Tough Tonneau 2. And so I've had that since 2008 or 2009. And the trick is to not use like Armor All on it. There's a specific vinyl guard that you can use that keeps it from drying out and being crappy. So that's the trick. And the other trick is to not drive around with it loose. Keep it tight. Keep the rails on it, and I don't try and fight with it in the cold. I don't take it off in the cold. I only do it in the sun because that makes it nice and easy to use. But it has no snaps. That's a snapless one. You just slide your hand down the rail and it just clips into the rail. So, yeah, I've gotten so many. I've been asked that question. That's like the number one question I've been asked since I started this channel, and people started seeing it. So there's your answer. So hopefully people in the future see this video, get through my rants, and get to the real nitty gritty juice. Where's the tonneau cover from? The number one question. Anyways, I don't want to leave you guys without showing you my handiwork with the. There's the heat shield tape. There it is. I'm gonna plug this back in because this phone's just about to die, so I don't want to cut you guys off here. So, anyways, I see there's more viewers coming in, but it's too late. Sorry, you're gonna have to start at the beginning. This live feed is an hour and 42 minutes, and for an hour of it, I bitch about life. So you're gonna have to go back and watch it from the beginning and see where I'm coming from, because it is just getting stupid out there. It's so stupid. We're not going to make it to the stars at the rate that we're going. We're not. You know, we applaud stupidity. We applaud negativity. We applaud new and improved ways of making people miserable. When was the last time we thought about colonizing Mars? We don't even talk about that. The only one talking about that is Elon Musk. He's the only one who thinks about that. No one else thinks about that. Nobody looks up in the sky anymore and says, what's out there? There's so many millions and millions of stars and just concepts that could be just, absolutely just amazing. And we don't even think about it anymore. We worry about the next like on our Facebook page. And I'll say I'm guilty of it too. They really found a great way to control the way we behave. The it can be more potent than some of these drugs out here. And we're just lowering our mental standards to a degree that we're not doing ourselves any favors. I mean, yeah, they legalized weed, and guess what? I don't smoke. Because you know what? It clouds you. Yeah, there's people out there that will do it and need it and all this stuff. But you know what? I think people are just afraid to just go about life without some kind of crutch. I think that's the hardest part. Is that I don't know, and I don't know what it is. I just think throughout the '90s, because I grew up in the '80s and the '90s, but in the '90s they were talking about parenting. They're like, parents are taking a hands-off approach because they want their kids to have more than what they had. Their parents in the '50s and '60s beat them, and we're not gonna do that to our kids and all this stuff. That was the big, hands off. The kid's gonna have everything. And then they had the helicopter mom phase and everything like that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'll tell you something is that what the kids are doing nowadays, I would have zero interest in, even if I was a kid that age. And I got in plenty of trouble when I was in high school. I mean, they gave me a car, drove a car. These kids can find a lot of trouble with a car. That's what I say. And yeah, nowadays it's like it's scary. It's like a subculture kind of thing. It's really like I can't even relate to it. I can't. I have no idea how I'd even as a 47-year-old how I'd even tap into the world like that. I just don't know. Benny, that's enough. I have no idea. And it's just scarier as an old man now because now that I've built up a world and I have things that I like and I cherish and I want to keep them, now the world goes insane. Back 30 years ago when I didn't have anything, and I was reckless with my money, reckless with my body, and didn't have a care in the world seemed like it was a lot more normal. And now that I actually got my S together, it's just like now I've got to fight. And I didn't really want to. I was kind of hoping for an apocalyptic event to happen after I died. It could happen 2 minutes after I died. Let me get to my 60s. Benny, come here. Come here. Ridiculous. So maybe that's why I'm not having the luck that I'm thinking. Is maybe I'm just looking at it from the wrong perspective or something. Maybe I'm just thinking old school, and that's not how people think anymore. Because it seems to be that the more negative that you are towards somebody, the more they like it. And that's not how I want to operate. You say something nice to somebody and they think that you're either A, trying to sell them something, or B, you're simping. But you go up to somebody, you say something horrible to them and all that, and all of a sudden they can't wait to jump in bed with you. Please treat me like garbage. I don't understand that. Don't want to do that. That's not what I don't want to bring somebody into my world to treat them like garbage. I can do that with random people all day long, which I don't, but there's people out there who probably deserve it. But I try and keep it on a level and on the level. But as I said, just after talking to this girl the other day, and just realizing it's like, why, how, why would you want that for yourself? But it's just, I guess it's like a culture shock. They're not used to being treated with any kind of respect. They're just treated like porno stars, and they can't handle somebody coming in, and they can't handle somebody who's not treating them like garbage. They can't. And I'm not saying I'm being overly nice or anything like that, because I'm not. There's a difference between being nice and being kind, and you want to be kind. You don't want to be nice, you want to be kind. And so I'm sitting here and I'm just like, listening to her talk, listening to her story. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great and everything like that. Interest going down. But then I told her that she was an old lady. And I said, I don't usually date old ladies. I date younger girls. And that, instead of her getting pissed off about that, she got happy about that. And then she started talking to me more. And I'm like, that is so backwards. I'm like, I just insulted you. And you're now more interested in me because I insulted you? Rather than when I was like, well, you're kind of pretty, go out sometime. And as soon as I asked her out on a date, that's when she started short-circuiting. She's like, oh, it does not compute. Must have Chad come over, blow out back, and then leave me and not talk to me for weeks on end while he's banging 5 other chicks. I don't know. And it's like, oh, this had nothing to do with trucks at all. Just my analysis and the way I see it is just absolutely ridiculous. So I'm just staying out of it. I'm going to put my gold foil tape on. That is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to stick with it. So anyways, have a great night, everybody. This is Pounding Rocks, and I am Dr. Rocks, and I am checking out, and I'm going to go put my phone on the charger. Good night. See ya.